Hello and welcome back. Today we are taking a look at the Transformers Studio Series. Transformers 1 Airachnid from Hasbro. This is Airachnid as she appeared in the Transformer 1 movie and forms part of Hasbro's Transformers Studio Series line, which is more movie accurate figures for the Transformers. I've picked up a few of the Studio Series Transformer 1 figures that have been released over the past year or so, and I have to say with most of them, I've been quite disappointed with what we've gotten, especially compared with other figures in the Studio Series line. However, I really liked Airachnid in the film. I like the look of this iteration of her, and it ended up being somewhat of a impulse buy at Smith's for me once seeing the figure on the shelf. Hopefully it's not as bad as some of the others, given that the film has now been out a while and Hasbro's had time to look at the proper appearance of the characters, etc, etc. But here we have the figure. She comes in that standard Transformers packaging with the Transformers name at the bottom. Picture of the figure on the side along with her alt mode. Number of steps to transform it from robot to drone. On the side we have that artwork coming around, which is quite nicely done. On the other side we get a profile shot of Airachnid. Top is just the name of the character and the film she's from. Bottom is all of our legal, and then the back is more legal barcode and a shot of the figure as she appeared in the film, along with her product shot there. But there we have the figure. Let's get this opened and take a look at the figure out of the packaging. So this will do for now. I just need to get something out. No, she's going to be tied in those god-awful plastics, isn't she? So I'm going to need something to clip those with. That will do. Okay, so we get the instructions for the figure, and then the figure is tied with those awful cable ties to the back of the standard Transformers inserts we're seeing, which is this current blue with the honeycomb structure with Transformer name and then the Autobot and Decepticon symbols. Interestingly, her accessories come in a little plastic bag rather than the tissue paper packaging we've been getting in the past. Personally, I prefer that tissue paper. One, it's a little more economical, and two, it added a little flair to the packaging of the figure because it was obviously always done in that Transformers logo. Hopefully that isn't an indication of what the packaging is going to be like for these figures going forward, but I guess we will see. Let that figure out. We can get that into the trash. Get rid of these bloody cable ties. Cable ties. And there's our figure straight out of the packaging. Let's see if we can get her stood up somehow. There we go. So immediately she comes with two blasters, which are done in a grey plastic with a little bit of silver paint apps to them. Nothing special, but they're nice enough. And then we have our instructions. I'm just going to have a quick look and make sure there's nothing untoward in setting her up. Nope. So pretty much straight out of the packaging. You can move these, should we call them tendrils, as we need, which will hopefully add a little stability to the character, so you can use those bottom two as legs to help get her stable, and yeah, move those around. So you can do some posability there to help get her stable. As you can see, she doesn't really have feet as so much stilts with heels on the back, which is how she appeared in the film. However, this does obviously make the figure quite unstable on her feet, and you do need to move the parts of the figure around to get a proper stable stance. However, that said, even with the tentacles off the ground, she isn't that unstable. She's definitely a lot more stable than I was figuring her to be. But yes, so immediately she is done, mostly in a grey plastic with very little in the way of paint apps. It all seems to be pretty much 1 or 2 tones of grey plastic throughout. We do get some nice red paint apps on the stripes up in the top here. And we get some nice little purple for those eyes on the figure. And a reasonable head sculpt as well. I feel like she's missing paint apps and could do with some more. However, equally, this was a very monochrome character in that film, so it seems pretty accurate to how she appeared in the film. Articulation-wise, she has a ball joint for a head, so she gets a full range of movement and some up and back, down. Doesn't really go back any further than that. Arms are on ball joints. One thing I have noticed with all of the Transformer 1 Studio Series figures is that all of the joints seem to be on ball joints rather than the mushroom pegs, and I'm not a big fan of the ball joints. As you saw there, the arm did pop off the ball joint. She gets an elbow swivel because of that ball joint, and she gets some wiggle waggle on the wrist, but I think that's going to end up being more for transformation than anything else. There's no waist articulation. The legs are quite high up, and again they're on ball joints. We do get a mushroom peg at the calf swivel. And that did make me think, no, there is no bicep swivel either, it's just the elbow. We get a bend at the top of the knee, and then there's a bend here at the bottom of what is essentially the knee, because we don't obviously get any real ankle tiltage or anything like that. There's no other rockers or anything there, so the articulation on this character is quite limited. The tendrils on the back have some additional, so they're all on ball joints, so they get a nice range of movement there, and then they do have some bend to them, so you can get those in different poses as you wish, and they do feel quite tight and sort of almost click as they're going around, so they are going to stay in those poses you get, which is nice. I'm assuming a lot of this articulation here is actually for the transformation, but it does add to that playability of the character if you want. So that's a nice touch. But there we have the figure in her robot mode. It is quite a simple figure, but it does look like the character as she appeared in the film, so that is a reasonable shout. I just wish that her articulation was more on mushroom pegs than those ball joints. Transformers on the ball joints always just seem weird to me. It feels cheaply done. Whereas, you know, Studio Series is supposed to be a premium line. I'd be interested to know why all of the Transformer 1 figures are done on ball joints, but everything else is currently on mushroom pegs. We do get our instructions, so we can then look at transformation. She will transform in supposedly 36 steps, so this does appear to be quite an intricate transformation for the character. So bring in our character, and the first thing we need to do is what looks a bit like the helicopter blade comes all the way up, and then something else is going to bend. That. Okay, so then, yeah, this part opens up as well, and that can splay out. Okay, so they can splay out, but they're not needed to. So, looking at our figure, she should be something. Oh, I see. So we need to twist this around like that. Splay that open like that, and that should give us that for the time being. And then it wants us to close this back up. Oh, so I guess when she's untransformed, she's supposed to be like that. So okay, so okay, so when she's in robot mode, she is supposed to be open like that rather than closed. I'm not quite sure why, but you bring that up, twist that around, close these together, and then splay open the additional blades. Then we come down to the rear two spindles, and these look like they collapse in on each other. Yep, one, two, and they do sort of clip. You can feel them clip into place, so they get a nice sturdy clip there. Then they come together. I think we're supposed to turn round like so. They come together and fit together on the two spokes on either top and bottom. Then, with that pretty much in the position there, the other arms fold. Okay, they are supposed to go from being up to down, like so. That's it. So these rotate around on a ball joint, so they are facing up like so. Then these clasp into place like that, and then they come around and they meet together and clasp together like so. Then this whole unit lifts up and back around. Okay, so looking at the instructions, it looks like you need to lift up that joint and lower it that way. So it's a little like that. Then bring the figure around, the arms open up or splay out at the elbows, and as suspected, the wrists rotate around. They will only go in one direction because of the ledge there, and then the covers snap back into place. So she's got the guns out. Okay, then the arms splay out like so. The front unclasps and the head drops down, and this cover will come back into place, and she has two peg holes on the top of her head and the two peg holes there. They align and clasp into place. The backpack lifts up, and then okay, well, it looks like I'm missing a step here. So, okay, I see. So you need to lift this up. They're still quite tight as well. Lift that up, and then there is this peg here and a peg hole on the back of her head, and that comes over and clips into place there. While there's no stress marks or anything like that, it is quite tight and it almost feels like you're going to break it, but it does clip in. Okay, then we can turn the figure back around, and her arms come around, and I think they should flip into place. Yep, so why aren't they? Oh, that's it. Okay, so the arms are going to come around, and there are clip or ledges here. This clip on the bottom needs to come up over and clasp into place. So it's a little fiddly. You sort of need to bring it round and then twist it, almost twist it. You don't want to actually twist, but lift it, and then the arms should, in theory, clasp together. There are pegs and peg holes, and that comes off the. This is one of the reasons I don't like these ball joints on the Transformers. They come off far too easily. Okay, so with those and that, there we go, and that they clasp in together there. Legs come around, and turning the figure back around, the legs or feet come back, they come up, and this lip here is going to tab into those peg slots. There we go. Then something splays up. Then the thigh covers are going to lift up, and these will twist around like so. It says, maybe not, no, I think they are going to. Okay, so I think not quite. Okay, so you kind of want to get them like that, and then spread them out. Oh, bloody ball joints. Oh. But as you're splaying them out, you want to unclasp the hinge at the knee and split them out. Like so. It's quite a tough clip, so it almost doesn't, unless you're looking at the instructions, you wouldn't immediately know it's there and feel it in the transformation. Okay. I have to admit that the transformation of this is quite fiddly. It's nothing difficult, it's just fiddly. Then these legs are going to rotate around so that those thigh pieces are sticking out. Then these come up and that's going to go in there. Is that right? No. So the legs are definitely going to twist around and they're going to be like that. And these need to come up and okay, so these need to come round and these need to rotate from this position to this position, and there are peg holes on the back here and pegs here, so these come up, the thigh clips into the side, and then what was the knee clips into the top shoulder point. Twist that around, find the position, lock that into place like so. Then these thigh covers, skirt pieces, they twist around, but they keep popping off the ball joint, which is annoying because they do need to twist around like so. It's these ball joints which make it really fiddly. It's just the fact that things keep wanting to clip off. And these supposedly just come together like so. They don't really clip in together or anything like that. They just kind of rest side by side. And then the arms have come unclipped, which is annoying. That clips in. Okay, and then there are peg holes on the underside of what were the arms. And these are going to clip into these thigh skirt pieces like one, and these arms keep coming undone. Two. There we go. So they're like that. There's certainly a bigger gap between them than what appears in the instructions, I think, but this all appears to be correct. Then we can turn our figure around, and there she is in alt mode. I feel like I've missed a step, I think. Okay, so these parts, I believe, are actually supposed to come up, and there are clips here, so I think They're supposed to help plug into place so that, come on, there it is. Okay, so there's a peg here, peg hole here, peg there, peg hole here. You need to make sure they're lined up, otherwise they just kind of shift back and forth. That will give us the propellers. Again, it's a little fiddly and quite tight joints, which isn't always a bad thing. It just makes it a little harder to get everything lined up. Then there we go. There we go, that's better. So you can see there, and then the propeller sort of sits in the middle. It does, when you're spinning it, catch against other parts, but it does still spin, which isn't too bad. There we go. And our guns can then fit onto her forearms here, or what were her forearms, if you want them to. He says, breaking everything. Come on. Everything's a very snug fit. There we go, and that has come out. There we go. And that clasps down. You can have those up like. Okay, so once the knees are clasped in, you can also then twist this part of the kneecaps around so that they are faced outwards like so. That's better. There we go. So as I said, it's a bit of a fiddly transformation. There's nothing horrid about it. It's just fiddly. Things don't everything fits very tightly together, so you need to be completely exact or things aren't going to align up properly. The fact that everything's on a ball joint and kind of just wants to unclasp from those ball joints is annoying, but overall I think it's a nice looking alt mode, much like every other jet and plane and every other flying alt mode we seem to get. Everything's just kind of there. You can see where everything kind of is, where, you know, typically the cars and trucks, everything kind of folds in and into each other, so it isn't as obvious. I mean, you can see the legs here, you can see the heads tucked under there, the arms, and you can see where everything is, but I do like the way this transformed. If it wasn't quite so fiddly, transforming it back should hopefully be fairly straightforward, of just working backwards. Need to fold those down. There's a round. Then we can fold legs down. I can come around. He says, nope, what have I missed? Is that it? Same there. Don't worry about the arms at the moment. Knees want to twist around there, and that wants to twist back around like so. Needs to drop and twist and clasp up. There we go, that's a little bit cleaner. It comes up, it comes around, gives us our legs. The arms unclasp. Oh, unclasp. This will unclip. And everything will kind of just lift up and away, he says. Come on. Oh, that's tough. Why is that so tough? I missed something. Move those up around. Really concerned I'm going to break this. Come on. Oh, you can see it's forming a stress mark where it's clipped in. I can't get them. If I miss something. So those came up, then everything kind of just... Oh, okay, so I'm going to push her head back, and then this should still not want to come out. I'm going to pull this and it's going to snap, which is worrying me. Oh, there it is. That was a tough clip, and you can see it's caused a stress mark there. There. Right, so it clips in. There. Once it's in, it really is in. Oh, there you go. You kind of... Right. Okay, so best way is to get your thumb up underneath, hold the head, and yeah, push down while your thumb's sort of pressing up to keep the pressure there. That's awkward. As you can see, that has left that stress mark on the back of the head connector, which is a little disappointing and concerning. With enough pull, that would have easily snapped the figure, or the back of the headpiece, or the clip rather, I should say, into the back of the headpiece, which would have been very, very disappointing. I don't like that. That does leave me a little wary that, you know, with enough time that could easily snap. While, you know, arguably the Studio Series is a collector line aimed at older collectors, this is no doubt being bought by parents for their kids as well, especially, you know, at the sort of the £20, £25 mark, whatever this was. It's, you know, at almost a standard price for kids Transformers as well. So, and I could see that easily snapping with children and parents alike who aren't, you know, as careful. So that is something to bear in mind. That's something to take into consideration with that figure. Now that I know how to transform it, I think it should be okay. I don't necessarily see it snapping anytime soon. Touch wood. Overall, out of all of the Studio Series Transformer 1 figures I've picked up, which is probably about 4 or 5 now, this has definitely been my favourite of the figures released so far. It's still not amazing. I feel, you know, the dull grey is a little disappointing. It could have done with some silvers in there or something just to bring out the detailing on the figure. The transformation is fiddly, but it doesn't feel annoying. You know, some of the fiddly Transformers, you come undone and they get really annoying. This isn't quite so case. It's just fiddly. But otherwise, I quite liked the transformation. I think being able to play with it a few times, it'd be a little easier, a little smoother in its transformation. Its alt mode, I really like the drone mode. As I said, it's still very much like any other flying Transformer we've got, where everything just kind of folds in together and you just kind of see all of the bits off the end or you're underneath it. But it's nice enough for its alt mode. Yeah, overall, it's a nice enough figure. It stands a lot better than I thought it was going to stand. The joints clip together nice and tight. So overall, I'm quite happy I've got this. It's not as fantastic as it could or should have been, but equally it's definitely nowhere near as bad as any of the other studio ones we've seen so far, nor is it the worst transformer out there at all. So I think if you're looking for an Airachnid, this is worthy of picking up. It's a decent enough figure. Yeah, there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, freedom is a right, not a privilege.